Whenever we will enable security system in the server, it will help us to protect our server from theft, damage, disruption and misdirection. So what are the security systems available in OS level that we will check? This is also a very interesting question from the interviewer. What is the host level security we can maintain? The host security means, first of all, one is in case of Linux, one is the firewall and another is the SCLinux. Both are the host level security we can manage. So enable the firewall service. A firewall is a network security system that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic. A firewall typically establishes a barrier between trusted secure internal network and another outside network. That means firewall is the OS level security which acts as a barrier between the trusted secure internal network and the outside network. Firewall D service which provides a firewall in Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That means firewall D is the service which is responsible for the firewall in Red Hat Linux. Automatically enabled during the installation. Whenever we install the operating system, firewall service automatically enables. Root user can start and enable the firewall D service. Display the current status of firewall service. So we have already learned about this command, systemctl status firewall D. As I told, firewall D is the firewall daemon which is responsible for the firewall service. To check the status, we have to use the command systemctl status firewall D. Now it is active and running, and this is the default. Whenever we install a OS, firewall service automatically start and enable. Another command is also there. We can hear firewall.service. How you can check? We can check that firewall.service. Here it is the complete name. But whenever we will enter only firewall, it will automatically detect that firewall is the firewall service. So another command also which is working in the RHL version 7 before, service firewall status. This is also old command. You can see active and running. So using the command we can check the firewall status. If firewall is not enabled and running, we have to use the command systemctl enable --now firewall D. So it will enable and start the service. And another command is also systemctl enable firewall D service. It will enable the service only. This command is work as a, it will start the service and enable the service. In a single command, we can start and enable the service. To open a ports, that means whenever the firewall service is started, it by default protect all the unwanted traffic from the outside of the traffic to the internal traffic. That means it allow only the listed services or listed ports in the firewall table. So if you want to allow a port, we can allow it manually. So list already open ports. If you want to list all the open ports in the firewall service, we need to check using the command firewall-cmd ---- list all. That means no ports are allowed here, only 1328 TCP port is allowed and other ports by default all are blocked. So check the service status, firewall-cmd get-service. Which services are allowed? You can see all these services are allowed. Check the zones. Which zones are allowed? You can see block, DMZ, drop, external, home, internal, libvirt, public, trusted, and work. These are the by default ports which are allowed. To open a port, before opening a port, let's check SSA service, SSA service or anyone service is working or not. To check the status, we will take as example HTTPD. As you can see, HTTPD service is running. That means the web application of the server should work. Yes, that means web service is running in the server. I have already told you crawl is the command level tool to check the web service or a URL. You can browse through crawl command. So if you will check with browser, check the IP address and copy the IP. Sorry. It is trying to connect to the server. You can see in the server itself, localhost is browsing. That means HTTP service is working properly. But whenever we are trying to connect from my desktop to the server, at that time it is not browsing. That means firewall service is blocking the outside traffic. That means public traffic to the internal traffic. So how can we do that? We can allow the HTTPD service. Firewall hyphen cmd minus minus zone is equal to public hyphen hyphen permanent hyphen hyphen add minus service HTTPD. Using this command or using this command also we can add the port, because HTTPD is works on the port 80. So you can use any of the command to allow the HTTPD service. You can see not browse. That means it is firewall service is blocking the connection. Let's allow the HTTPD service. HTTPD service allowed it. Then what I have to do? We have to reload the service. Firewall hyphen cmd hyphen hyphen reload. It will immediately reload the service or replace the firewall service. So this rule is start working immediately. Then check. You can check HTTPD service is allowed from the outside of the network to the internal traffic. So this is the firewall service, and this is the method how we can add a port or service. If you want to remove the any port, here we can do, we can add hyphen service or remove hyphen service, remove hyphen service HTTPD. To remove a service, again we need to reload the firewall. Check again. My screen is visible to all. You can see it is blocked. Another method is also we can telnet. Telnet IP then port 80, which is responsible for the HTTPD service. You can see telnet is not working. Telnet is the network tool through which we can check the connectivity between the server and the source and the destination. So firewall is blocking the 80 connection. Let's allow the port again. Reload the service. So try to check again. Yes, you can check. Telnet service is now working. That means firewall service started allowing the outside traffic to the internal traffic. So another security system is managing basic SCLinux setting. SCLinux is the another security system which is also available in the Linux server. So security enabled Linux, SCLinux is an additional layer of system security, determines which process can access the which files, directories and ports. That means this is also another security which determines to allow which process to the which files, directory and ports. SCLinux has two possible states, disable and enable. So when SCLinux is enabled, it runs in one of the following mode. Enable means enforcing and permissive. So how you can check this one? You can see SCLinux is disabled. So what is the configuration file? vi/etc SCLinux and config. You can see, as I told you, there are three modes: enforcing, permissive and disabled. First is one is disable and another is enable. Whenever it is enabled, there are three modes: enforcing, permissive. These are the two modes. Whenever it is enabled, there are two modes: enforcing and permissive. Enforcing means in enforcing mode, SCLinux enforces the loaded policies. That means when policies enforce means all loaded policies are by default it will start disable the policies. What is that means all policy will enforce. Enforcing mode is the safest SCLinux mode and is the default mode after installation. That means whenever the SCLinux service is installed, after that SCLinux will be by default enforce the policy.
Default
Then
disable.
permissive. Permissive mode, SCLinux does not enforce the loaded policy. That means it will start allow the policies. SCLinux does not deny access but reports action that breaks the rule. And the log file will be var log audit.log. Permissive mode is the default mode during the installation. Whenever the service is installing, at that time permissive mode will work. That means whenever we will install a package or install a service, at that time it will be in permissive mode, and after installation it will be in enforcing mode. Ensuring the required state of Linux, display the current SCLinux mode, get enforce. Get enforce. You can see it is disabled. Another command is also SC status. Then temporarily set SCLinux. Enforcing mode. If we want to enforce the SCLinux temporarily, set enforcing or set enforce 1. SCLinux is disabled. So we want to enable the SCLinux. How you can enable? Go to config, then here edit and write enable. Enforcing. Then it requires a reboot the server. If you want to permissive mode temporarily, set enforce permissive and set enforce 0. It will be work temporarily, but whenever we will restart the server again, the default policy defined in the configuration file will start working. SCLinux mode to persist across reboot. That means if we will modify the setting in the etc SCLinux config file, it will start working even after reboot the server also. So examples, SCLinux to enforce mode, we need to SCLinux in enforcing. What I have done here. You can see here I have changed the disable state to enforcing mode. That means SCLinux is now in enforcing mode, but it's require a reboot of the server. If we want to disable, here we want to write the disable. SCLinux types end with _t. That means type name of the web service is httpd_t. In case of firewall, we have executed the commands with httpd only. That means in case of firewall, it detects the services with name httpd. You can see here I have added the httpd, but in case of SCLinux, it will be httpd_t. Set individual domains or permissive mode while the system runs in enforcing mode. That means whenever we try to allow a service through SCLinux, we need to use the command scmanage permissive -a httpd_t. So today class we have learned about firewall services and how to manage the SCLinux. These are the two services which work as a security level in the host operating system. Anyone having any doubt?
Sir, SCLinux is default is there, or you have to install manual?
No, whenever we will install the operating system, at that time it will by default start in the enforcing mode. Enforcing mode is the default mode after OS installation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you friends. This is the last class of this session.